So that Satan can feign or mask humility, but one virtue Satan cannot feign or mask is obedience. Humility provides the soul with a garment of profound calm. The most perfect, the most sublime humility is that of losing one's way of reasoning, and of not discoursing on the why and on the how, but of abandoning oneself to God in one's own nothingness, and in doing so, the soul, without realizing it, finds itself immersed in God. This, in turn, produces in the soul the most intimate union, the most perfect love toward its highest good. This is to the soul's greatest advantage, for in losing its own reason, the soul acquires divine reason. And in losing every inquiry of itself, whether the things that happen to it that are favorable or adverse, it will be interested in and will acquire a language that is completely divine and heavenly. A true humility, the most sublime and perfect humility, is that of losing one's own way of reasoning. Now, let us be careful. Jesus did not say losing reasoning. He said losing one's way of reasoning. What's the difference? Sometimes we think according to our way of thinking and not according to God's. So we have to put on, as St. Paul says, the mind of Christ. Assume the attitude of Christ. How do we do that? And how do we know that we are not reasoning according to God, but according to our own way of thinking or our own standards? Well, the answer to that question is, one, by informing our conscience with good teachings that are found in sacred scripture, that are found in the catechism, and so forth. In other words, we start to behave less for our own interests and more for that of God in and through our neighbor. This is known in psychology as altruism. So the soul progresses from egotism to altruism. It thinks less of its own interests. It doesn't abandon its interests, but it thinks less of what is of interest to itself and more of that of what is interest to God and of its neighbor. Now, certainly the two work hand in hand. If we serve each other, certainly we're indirectly serving ourselves. St. James says as much in his letter when he says that when one turns a soul from its errant ways back to God, it saves that soul and itself. You see? So when we serve each other's interests, we are automatically serving God and our own interests. We're serving our own interests in as much as we are amassing merit before God and neighbor, without even serving our own interests. Okay. Humility does that. That's a true humility, the most sublime. Okay, it's not the feigned, external, what I call piousness, that is attempt to impress others that we are holy. It is a natural, second nature way of serving God in and through others.